being a leading supplier of business analysis, corporate performance, and tax accounting solutions. So in last year, there was another acquisition of a planning company, Tidemark, with a fully cloud offering born in the cloud planning solution. This was done in 2017. So our mission today with Longview is connected finance. So we're supporting the digital transformation of the office and of the CFO. We do this by integrating all critical finance solutions that support and drive corporate performance. We provide all the analytics and insights in the strategy of the company and how we execute on the strategy of the companies. We're supporting you to get rid of these manual processes by driving automation and efficiency in the organization. And there are typically still lots of silos of data for operations and for finance. So we're connecting the financial data between finance and the business operations. We're supporting collaboration via our portfolio and give transparency across all these departments. So key focus of Longview is customer success. For this reason, we have a customer success management team who taking care for all our customer belongings. We do have a really great support team and getting lots of good feedback for our support. And I think also our 95% customer retention rate does prove this. All this is based on our visionary platform with 25 plus years of domain experience in our IP development and delivery of our solutions. We do have an extensive partner network. So we're running this webinar today with our premium partner, Partec, who have specific and very good domain expertise in Essbase. And frequently, our executive management does support specific customer enhancements. Today's focus in this webinar, of course, is Longview Analytics powered by ArcPlan. But here I also want to take the chance and for the ones who don't know Longview yet, also to show what other solutions are in the portfolio of Longview and how we can support you also with the solutions, for example, in faster closing your books. So we do have also a consolidation solution, close. We do have a solution supporting your tax reporting, tax accounting challenges. If you still run many of those in your organization's Excel-based, so it's highly valuable to have a close look along the text, and also for transfer pricing. There's a specific solution out there. And as mentioned already in the beginning, there is, since last year, also with Tidemark, 100% cloud-based planning solution in the portfolio, which supports you in transforming the office of the CFO. But here we focus on Longview Analytics today, powered by ArcPlan. And just for the ones who maybe don't know Longview Analytics that well, just a high-level overview about what it's doing. So it's a business application for dashboarding, reporting, planning, and operations. And what is very important with Longview Analytics, we are always connected in real time to underlying data sources. So we have lots of interfaces directly connecting to SAP, SAP HANA, IBM, Microsoft, and many more. And of course, since many, many years, also to Oracle Hyperion, Essbase. And today we have the specific focus on the Grid API, and Markus and Dirk will highlight the advantages of using the Grid API. All the visualization is done in an HTML5 client, so it's easily for every end user to access these applications via the desktop, tablets, or mobile applications. Some of you may have heard about the BARC BI survey, which is the largest independent worldwide survey of BI users. we are yearly ranked very high in this survey. So this year in the 2018 survey, we have received 6 top rankings and 42 leading positions. So our customers are recommending the use of Longview Analytics, and we are since 5th year in a row outstanding in our results for the visual design standards. In the live demo, I think you will also see a little bit of that, because maybe you've heard about business communication standards, and some of these have been also reflected in the live demo later on, showed by Markus. I think one of the most significant decision criteria using Longview Analytics is flexibility. And as you see here, 67% of Longview users have chosen the solution because of the flexibility. And also in the results, we are since 5th year with outstanding results in flexibility. This is also or just a small snippet of the BARC PI survey. So we do have highest competitive rates and highest customer satisfaction in the quadrant of the BARC PI survey. And as you see, as an integrated performance management product, we are top ranked in several categories as well as in the leader position. Most of our customers using Longview Analytics in respect to dashboarding, reporting, planning, and operations. And it's not an industry-specific solution. So as you see here, customers are cross-industry, and maybe some of you will find their logo and their company name here. So we are proud of all our big customers, which we do have. At this level, I want to move to Dirk and Markus and to give them a chance to tell us a little bit about Partec, what they're doing, and then also to see something live.
Okay, thanks, Olli. As Olli mentioned, my name is Dirk Dwyer, and good morning and good afternoon, and a warm welcome from myself as well. I would like to introduce you our company and tell you a bit about the advantages you can experience with the Grid API and Longview Analytics. Partec Consulting is a European-based BI consulting company serving our customers for now over 11 years. At the moment, we are around 25 people based in Düsseldorf and Munich in Germany. We are the specialists when it comes down to implementing planning and reporting solutions. In these 11 years we are existing, we implemented about like 250 planning and reporting projects successfully. We offer you like the whole BI stack, from connecting the data sources over data modeling, data warehouse, cube design, visualization, all the stuff we have in our focus. Because from our experience, you have to have the whole picture from the data source to the reports to design and implement a solution which fulfills all the necessities from performance, data quality, and usability. Next to our technical expertise, we offer a wide range of business know-how. We are not the kind of company that just offers P&L reports for insurance companies. As you can see on the slide, we offer way more, like supply chain, cash flow reporting, predictive analytics, and so on. And there's overall all kind of businesses. We achieved this so far with our consultants who come from all different kind of knowledge areas like controlling, accounting, computer science, human resources, and so on. This gives us the ability to be a capable partner for like the IT departments concerning technical issues, as well as for the business departments on non-technical issues. So we can talk to both sides and find the right solution for everyone. So far, so much about Partec. So I come now to the real reason why we are here. Why use the Grid API? The bullet points that you see there already bringing it down to the point, like a reduction of complexity. We've done quite a lot of Longview Essbase projects in the past, and with the old API and Longview. for sure, we were able to reach our goals for reports and applications, but sometimes when requirements were pretty hard and pretty strong to meet, it was kind of a lot of effort and time we have to put in the reports, and would become pretty complex. And this kind of motivated us to join forces with Longview and introduce the Grid API to the Longview application framework. Now with the Grid API, the complexity to get the right data in the way we need it for the reports from the cube is down from 10 to 1. You will see later on Marco's examples that's really true. Like beforehand, it's pretty hard sometimes to get the right results, and now it's very easy. So the next one is the improve of maintainability. This is a direct consequence of the reduced complexity in the reports. The maintenance is very easy because, like, if you have regarding changing requests or bug fixing or other things, this is way easier to handle because it's not so complex, and you can see right now where's the problem or where I have to change something. Also, big issue is the performance improvement. So far, right now, you had to use 6 or 8 data retrieves to get the data all you need for different years, for different aggregation types. And right now, using the Grid API, you can put it down to one retrieve. So it's pretty easy to calculate. Like beforehand was 8 times 1 second, and now it's 1 time 1 second or 1.5 seconds. So you will know this gives the usability a big boost, because when the requested data is available in 9 blinks, the user will have no waiting time and can work on right on. Also, the reduced complexity makes it easier to communicate with the business users, because using the Grid API is the same grid the user uses in SmartView. So you're talking on a totally different level, because you both look on from the same point of view on the data, not the one on the grid, the other one drawing errors and something like that. So it saves you time and a lot of effort, like getting the requirements in the right way and implement the solution for them. The last point comes down to Hyperion Planning. Probably as many as you have used Hyperion Planning already, you know it's just provides spreadsheets for the input. And from my point of view, this does not meet the requirements of modern planning applications by ages. With Longview, you can use all these elements which put your planning application to the next level: graphical objects, real-time simulations, on-the-fly validations, provide relevant information for the planning from other sources, out-of-the-box workflow engine, and so on. That really gives you the tools to make a real good planning application, which really satisfies the customers. So that's so far from my side. I switch over to Marcos, and he will show you a more technical background and the live demos, so you can see how it works. Marcos, the mic is yours. Thanks a lot.
Hello and welcome from my side as well. My name is Markus Bremer from Party Consulting, and we're going to look into some of the details that Dirk and Olli already talked about. First, for a start, to get everybody on the same page, let's have a look at the basic architecture. You want to maybe call it best practice or whatever. That's how a lot of architectures look in the reporting and planning environment. You have your front end part, which is Longview with like mobile or desktop versions. You have in Essbase environments, you most certainly have SmartView for power users. Below that, you have your cubes. Below that, normally you have some kind of relational data warehouse or something, and that is sourced by the source systems like SAP, Oracle Financials, whatever. There are, of course, like a few shortcuts and exceptions to the rule, but this is the basic picture we're talking about today. And especially we're looking at this part, which is highlighted in red, so the connection and the working between Longview and Essbase. To really understand what is the nice and new part, we have to take a little technical sidestep, let's call it that way. Until now, all the stuff, if you work with Longview Analytics and Essbase, all the stuff mostly went via the C API. That's the traditional one that was always in use. It's used for log in, log off, reading the cube outline, so the dimension structures, reading list of calc script, executing calc script, setting variables, and all that stuff that you need around the cube to work with it. Then, of course, it's used for querying data. So that for that, we have the option of either using report script queries or MDX queries from Longview Analytics. And it offers also a write-back possibility, but you have to be careful that it's done cell by cell. So if you have big amount of data writing back to the cube, it might take a little bit of time. So that's how it was done always. Another option which was introduced already quite a few years ago, which is not that many people know about it, I guess, is the outline API. If you use the C API above for querying dimension structures, so like you want to fill your entity selection or your account selection with the entity structure or the account structure, you only query the dimension structure from the cube. But the report script or MDX actually in the background queries a data column with it, which needs to be calculated. Normally not an issue, but can become a performance issue in, let's say, 90-95% of the cases. You can set it up right that it works okay, but there are a few cases where it is hard to come around, and then you can use the outline API, which queries only dimensions, no data. That is done very fast. The downside is that it doesn't take into account any security settings on the dimension itself. So if you have like restricted your dimension that the Mexican controller only sees the entities of Mexico and the US controller only sees the entities of the US and so on, that is not taken into account with the outline API. So they see the whole structure. On the data side, the security still works, but on the dimension side, it doesn't. And so we come to the what's new part. That's the grid API that is now available via Longview as well. It's the exact same API that is used by SmartView. And as you probably already guessed by the name, it's grid-based. So you have some kind of a grid to work with the API. It is only used for querying and for writing data to the cube. It is not used for log-in, log-off, dimension loads, and all that stuff. That is still done by the C API above. So you basically use the C API, but when it comes to data query or data write-back, you use separate functions that are provided by Longview Analytics for the grid API. So those of you that already work with Longview Analytics and Essbase, how do I set it up normally? Those of you who work with it will recognize it probably. The traditional setup is you have quite some connection errors. You have most probably multiple single queries. If you have like a rolling year, so you have a change of year in between, you have a different order of the month. You have a scenario switch because you want to compare actual versus budget or forecast. You have something else like you want to see month-to-date, year-to-date data at the same time. All that stuff in combination normally requires that you have multiple queries in the background of the report. And then you have to combine it, of course, as the user does want to see it in one part, in one table or whatever, on the screen. So you have to combine the separate queries into one part for display, for presentation, and that probably will look then like this. You see here, people who work with Longview and Essbase will recognize it. You have separate queries. I put some highlights to it, so you see what do we have here. We have a rolling 12-month query, so we have a query for like April 2018 going back till May 2017, 12-month rolling. So that implies that you have a year switch and you have the periods in a different order. So you have current year month to date, previous year month to date. That's 2 queries. And additionally, the requirement was to show some year-to-date April 2018 data, actual versus budget. That's two extra queries on the right side. That makes 4. If you say each query takes 1 second, you have 4 seconds of data query already in here. And you have to combine it for presenting it to the user. Same query with the Essbase Grid API. How are you going to do it? As I said, it's grid-based, so you need basically a table object in Longview Analytics. It is an identical setup as you would query it in SmartView. So those people familiar with SmartView will probably know that SmartView has basically 3 different components. It has a filter row in the first line. It has then a definition of the column and row headers. So you say, okay, my filters are all dimensions that are neither in the column nor in the rows. And then additionally, I have my definition of column and row headers. And in column and rows, you can easily use stacked dimensions. So it will look something like this. This actually is a screenshot from Longview. It could also be a screenshot from SmartView, basically. So what do we have here? We have the first part is the filter row on top. All dimensions that are not in the rows or columns are in the filter row. So you have selections like, in this case, it's currency euro, country Germany, no version. Then you have your column headers. In this case, it's scenario, year, and period. So it's the exact same query as before. We have 12 months rolling, so actual May 2017 until actual April 2018. And then 2 columns for year-to-date April 2018 actual and year-to-date April 2018 budget. So that is all in one query, stacked dimensions in the columns. You have your row definition. In this case, it's only accounts. Could also be stacked, combination of accounts, flow accounts, for example, or something else. And that is your empty grid. And that is put as an input into the grid function. This is a screenshot from a German version, so it says the German name of the function, but the English one is sgrid retrieve. You put the cube in there and the empty grid on top, and as a result, you get the grid at the bottom with the data in. So it's one query, probably takes a little more than one of the single queries beforehand, let's say 1.3 seconds. So before it was 4 queries, 1 second, each 1 second. Now it's one query, 1.3 seconds. And I've seen customer examples for this where we went from 6 to 8 queries to 1 query, and that is a whole different ballgame if people have to wait 8 or 9 seconds for a report to react, or if they wait just like 1, 1.2, 1.5 seconds. It's more or less instantaneous working. It's a whole different thing. So that was the basic concept of a grid API. Until now, only data retrieve, so data reading. Since 2018 spring release of Longview Analytics, we also have the write back possibility with the grid API. It works similar to the data query, so it's the same grid setup. It is also it is working very similar. You will see in a minute. Just to give you an example, how it is helping people building the applications. It's like in the past, if you want to plan something, you have to query the data of the view to be planned, already previously inputted forecast or budget data or actual data as additional information or whatever, but you have to query it most probably in separate multiple queries. You have to combine it for the user to display. The user enters the data in the planning environment. The data needs to be then taken apart again because it comes from different queries. You have to put it back into those different queries for write back, which you then ultimately take apart and do, and then it will be written back to the cube on a cell-by-cell basis. The grid API nowadays, you can just use one data query, present it to the user enters data, and you copy that entered data back into one grid, and you write it into the cube at once, not on a cell-by-cell basis. You probably filter out the actual columns or something because you only want to have the forecast data for input, but that's basically all you have to do maybe. The rest is very easy. So how does it work in Longview Analytics? This is your grid. Looks very similar as to what we've seen before. We also have the 3 options, the 3 components, the filter row, the headers. This is a rolling forecast. So you have like scenario forecast year 2018, 2019 from May 2018 till April 2019, 12 months rolling forecast. And you have, for example, product groups on the lines. So you enter forecast data on a monthly basis for product groups. And of course, you want to write back data, so you don't have an empty grid like before. You have a grid with data. So that is basically what you send to the cube. This grid I want to write back into the cube, and it's done at once. There's also a function for it. It's called in English, it's called sgrid write. So that's basically also takes as parameters the cube name, the grid above as the input grid, and then there are some options regarding data logs and stuff. That is you have to look up when you're working with it in detail. And you get a result, which is either the 0 or 1. For 0 means there was an error, and 1 means everything is okay. And that's, instead of taking data apart and copying it into 3, 4, 5 different queries, it's just one grid writing back at once. So very easy and comparable to what you use for data retrieve. Sorry. And then enough for the theoretical part. Let's go into the live demo. I have to switch. I hope you can see it on the screen. Yes, there we are. We prepared a little demo. What do we see here? This is the rolling forecast, as you saw in the screenshot examples just a minute ago. It's basically you have your rolling forecast. You have 3 months of actual data. So you select 1 month, like April. Then you have the selected months and the 2 previous months as actual data for your, basically as a starting point for your information. And then you have 12-month rolling forecast. So that means from, in this case, May 2018 till April 2019, you can enter data on a product group level. And on the bottom, you have a total, all product groups, and in the end, you have two totals, which is the year-to-date for the year 2018. It also takes into account the January, for example, which is not on display here. So it takes January till April actual data plus May till December forecast data, what you entered here, and adds it up for you to see how is the result for 2018 with the forecast data entered. Additionally, you have a sum of the total forecast, as the rolling forecast is also 12 months, so it adds up to the 12 month of the forecast to give you a total of the forecast. On the bottom, you see a graphical representation of the all product groups of the total line from the table to give you a graphical idea of how does it relate to the months to each other. And additionally, you have the entity selection from the cube. We want to do a bottom-up planning, so you can enter data only on the lowest level on the single entities. That is why there, if you go in here, you cannot enter any data. It is locked. First, you have to go down and select an entity. You have the entities. They have two different ways of looking at it, by country or by line of business. If you go by country into Germany, you see there are different line of businesses, different versions of entities like subsidiary, equity, franchising, e-commerce. And if you go down there, you see there are single entities below. And for those, you can do a planning. If you select one of these, the part of the table where you can enter data switches to green. So you see, okay, now I can enter some data. I can just start entering data here. And if you look at the totals at the bottom or at the end, and if you look at the chart at the bottom, you see that it automatically adapts to the numbers you enter. So let's make it a little smaller. So you see the rest of it, but you see as soon as I enter data, the chart at the bottom is changing and the totals at the end are also changing. That is all done in the front end. No data has been written back to the cube yet. So I can put in my data as I want. I can check the totals. I can see the chart. And then when I'm fine with it, I can save it to the cube. Or I can revert it and say, okay, please erase everything that I just entered and go back to the previous state. So if I say I want to save it, I just click on save. I get a message successfully saved. And only in this instance, we just save the data via the Grid API right back to the cube. So now it is in the cube. Cube is automatically updated. So if I go from individual entities up on the higher levels, you see, for example, this 500 here in the last column that is only entered in this one entity, it seems. There is no data in any other entity. So if I go down to the country level, I see that the 500 is already there. So there is no need to, in this case, the cube is set up, so there's no need to aggregate it or something. You can also go to the entity via the line of business version. If you say I want to look at equities, for example, then you see you have the equities across all countries here. You can also go this way. It doesn't matter. You just have to go to your single entity in whatever way, and then you can do the same here. Just enter some data. You can also put in some checks. We have a net sales forecast here, so your number shouldn't probably be negative. If you try to do that and you save it, you see there's a message, no negative values allowed, please change it. You could also opt to highlight it in red or something, whatever you want. Still all done in the front end, no saving to the cube of the wrong numbers. And it also, as you saw, it prevents saving to the cube. So your users cannot save any bad data to the cube, so it goes back. You just enter some data and then you say click save, and then it is saved to the cube if everything is okay. So you can put in all kinds of validations and prevent getting of saving bad data to the cube. So this is basically the rolling forecast example. In the background, it works very similar to what we've seen in the presentation. Basically, there's one grid which is being written back to the cube. Another example is the driver-based planning with the driver tree. The driver tree more or less gives you or shows how KPIs are related to each other. So in this case, we have an EBIT, which is basically made up of the net sales minus the cost of goods sold and some other costs like R&D and other stuff. So that's all added up. You see the plus and minus gives you the relation of the numbers. And the net sales then divides further down into gross sales and deductions, and the gross sales divides into new and current products, and both of those are sold on new and current markets. Same for cost of goods sold. They are divided into labor cost, material cost, and production cost. Those added up go to cost of goods sold. So this is basically, it's a planning overview. So you can change the blue numbers later on. And it automatically changes everything in the tree. You can say, I want to plan for 2019, a certain region, a certain division or business line, and you can have versioning. So you can have like, I want to build a best case, worst case, average scenario, whatever you want. And then in the end, you decide version 5 is the one that is most, you can discuss it and say version 5 is the most probable one. So that's the final plan, high level planning we do here. So in this case, you also, for each of the boxes, you have a reference value, which in this case is the last actual from the previous year. It can also be your last forecast, whatever you want. And a difference, which is basically the difference from the reference value to the blue number that has been entered. So if I say, hey, the starting point, the initial point is the last year's number. So I say, hey, new markets, I'm going to sell more of new products in new markets, also new products in current markets. I'm pretty positive that all new products are great, so they will sell very good. Current products also in new markets, current products in current markets probably not that good. So I enter my numbers, and you see all directly it already displays the difference percentage. Like current market, current products, current markets is down 3%. Everything is else is up a little percentages. So sales down is bad, so it's red. Sales up is good, so it's green. And you can also see automatically. It's a bad example, I just noticed, because the current products addition is exactly the same. So let's put it that way. So you see here, it doesn't only change here, but it also goes up the tree. So you see this change here adds to new products being up 17%. 250 plus 280 is 530. So, and then 250 plus 615, 530 plus 615 is 1,145,000. That's 8% up gross sales, 9% up net sales, and so on. So it leads to 47% up in EBIT even. Very nice. So I can see the differences and how they relate to each other at one glance, and I can already see if I make some changes down here, how it affects my EBIT. So I could say, hey, production costs are up because I have new products, I sell more of them, so production costs are up and labor costs are up. Stuff like that. And then I see cost of goods sold are up 7%. Cost up is not good, so 7% is red. But still my EBIT is up 38%, so nothing to worry about so far. Nice thing here is this is just classic bottom up as we had in the example before. You can also say, hey, I want to enter data on this level. I'm positive we're going to sell 550,000 new products. And it automatically breaks down this 550,000 into the ones below on the ratio of the reference values in this case. You could also say I want to break it down on the ratio of the blue values, my previously entered data. Also possible, but you can just say I want to have 550,000, and then it breaks it down and also goes up, of course, the whole tree until the EBIT. So that's all kinds of different options you have here in Longview Analytics for entering data and for really helping people understand how the data is related to the numbers are related to each other when they enter data. So once you're fine with it, you just click save, and then it's in the cube. Basically, those are depending on how your model is set up and what you have here, you have like year, region, and so on. You have different accounts or something. You have a product dimension in here, and you save it, and then it's in the cube available for everybody. And you could go to another version, and the new version starts again with something else. Or you have another version where somebody already put some numbers in. You see it's different numbers, but it's still different from the reference value, so somebody already put in some data. So that helps a lot. You could also think of having both of the things we saw. So people enter bottom-up data in the sales plan, and then they probably see this only as a read-only screen. So they cannot enter data, but they see the results of their sales planning in here and see what it has for kind of effect for the gross sales, the net sales, and so on. So they have a better understanding of what's their bottom-up planning, the numbers at the bottom are doing in the upper parts. So much for the live examples. Let me just go back to the presentation. Just a second, making sure that you all see the right screen. Yes. So we have saw the driver-based planning as well, the demo. So just to have a quick wrap up, what are the benefits of a grid API? As you saw before, you have a massive reduction in number of data queries, so that leads to way better performance. As I said, keep in mind like 6 to 8 seconds down to 1.5 seconds. That is a whole different ballgame. You don't have to combine or take apart data anymore. Makes it way easier to build, understand, and maintain. Somebody else comes in and has to understand the application. You yourself have to look at an application you built 2 years ago or something. It's way easier to go through it and bug fix it or change something because the change requests come in. You can easily work with stack dimensions, which was quite complicated before. So all of the above lead to way reduced implementation times. And we're talking, like, from our experience, 40% on average here, depending on the complexity of your application. As mentioned before, you have identical structures. You saw it. You have the identical smart view, the grids as in smart view. So you can really talk shop with the business users and just with them send back and forth smart view grids, basically. And if you already have the smart view grid in your application, you can also use it as offer the power users a smart view export to Excel. Take this example. Somebody is using his standard Longview Analytics analysis reports on Essbase, but there is some kind of special effect this year, this quarter, this month, whatever he wants to analyze ad hoc, and it's not happening regularly, so there is no way of seeing it in the standard reporting because he has to do some pivoting or drill and slice and dice or drill down or whatever that is not enabled in the standard reports. The old way would be he would open up his smart view manually, connect to the cube, and try to find the point of view that the report is showing, and then from there on go on further. But there might be some technical dimensions that are not shown to the user in the report. There might be some dependencies between dimensions that when one is switched, another one is also switched that the user doesn't see. So it's already a guessing. It's always a guessing game to how good he's able to find the point of view that used in the report. If you offer him the exact same point of view that the report has at the moment that he's looking at it, so he has the exact same point of view in Excel, he just needs to connect to the cube and he can continue where he left off with the report at once. So you basically have a whole different ballgame of enabling ad hoc analysis in all this stuff. So that's it from my side. I would give back to Olli or Irene for this.
Yeah, thank you, Markus. Thank you, Dirk. So, Markus, I think it was a very impressive live demo as well. And so my takeaway, the Grid API is it's better, it's easier, and this results in lower costs and reduce the time for development. And what is very important, you have better chances to align with the business users, and at the end of the day, all kind of business developments are done because of the requirements the business users do have. And if you have more time, you can add more content and more useful extensions to your business applications for your users. So thanks for that. And at that level, I want to ask Irene for the Q&A. Have you received some questions via the chat window during the presentation?
Indeed we have. Indeed we have. So first question I have received is, can the Grid API use multiple Essbase cubes in one query?
Markus here, hi. No, that's not possible, as SmartView also cannot do that. You can build separate grids in separate queries and send it to separate cubes. But of course, you can beforehand make sure that the grids are compatible, so that then you have to combine them again from different cubes. Other way could be to doing this in Essbase already with partitioning cubes, but that's a detail level.
Okay, next question is, are there any special requirements for the Essbase cubes?
Not really. All cubes that you use basically for your everyday reporting planning can be used with the Grid API as well. I mean, you use it with SmartView, so that's the same. That the Grid API is the same API that SmartView uses. So everything you do with SmartView there, you can also do with Longview Analytics in this case.
Okay, perfect. So another question was, does the Grid API functionality in Longview Analytics need to be licensed separately?
Maybe I take this question. So as always, it depends. So if you're interested in using the Grid API, please contact your customer success manager, and then he can have a look together with you in your individual license agreement, and we take it from there.
Okay, so if there's any subsequent question, I can unmute right now if somebody feels that he has to ask another question. Simply raise your hand. Other than that, I have another question. I see that coming up. At the beginning of the session, you have mentioned a cloud planning solution as well. What's that all about?
Yeah, maybe I can also answer to this. I guess you're referring to Tidemark. As mentioned, we have merged with Tidemark in last year, and Tidemark was founded by budgeting and planning leaders who worked with BPC, Essbase, and many other vendors. And they created a born in the cloud solution with a totally new approach. No cubes approach, which can align much easier and faster with new requirements from the business, integrated in a collaboration platform. And all of this is now also integrated in the Longview portfolio. It does have fully integration with Longview Analytics. And as mentioned, if you have a specific interest in Tidemark, please contact us. I just have here the contacts of Markus, Dirk, and myself. Contact your customer success manager, contact any of us, and we can give you also more details on Tidemark in a separate session.
Okay, during your explanation, we got some further questions in. I would like to read them out right now. Current API can show you the content of the query that is sent to Essbase, required by auditors for SOX reports. Can Grid API make that visible as well?
No, that's not possible. It is basically the grid that is sent to Essbase. There is no query in the background. There is no report script or MDX or whatever that is being sent to the cube. It's just the grid. So basically your query is the grid.
Okay, another question is, would you still be using traditional C API to get the dimension values to build the Grid API? For example, you would want valid dimension values to build the API query.
Yes, as I said in the overview, in the technical overview, the Grid API is only for data querying and data writeback. So everything else, the login, log off, querying the dimension structures is done via the traditional way, basically. And from there, you then build your grids. I mean, some things are fixed in the grid, which you do not dynamically query, but other things like a current year, current period, or list of accounts maybe, or entities or whatever, selected entity, you want to dynamically add to the grid. And that is done exactly as in the question. You query it with the traditional way and then just combine it into the grid.
Okay, another question is, what version of Longview is needed for the writeback to grid needed?
That's the spring release of this year. So I think it was released somewhere April, May or something. So that's 10.02, I think. And you need Essbase at least 11.1.123, I think. But it's also described in the help of Longview Analytics for those grid functions. There is some notes regarding the Essbase version.
Okay, perfect. That seems to be it, if I'm not wrong. I don't see any further questions coming up, other than that somebody has asked whether we get the presentation or the recording later on. Of course, we will send out information later on to all the attendees and those who were not able to make it. That means during the next days you will receive an email with a link to the presentations and also to the recording. While I was speaking, another question came up, so it doesn't stop. A trace file would give the query script is one question which also came up.
There is no real query, basically. As I said, the grid is the query. The grid is not translated into any MDX report script or anything query. It's just the grid that is being sent to Essbase as a grid, and Essbase returns a grid. So I have to check myself actually what's in the trace file there, but there is at least no query because the Grid API doesn't work with queries.
So we are really happy that we encourage you to ask questions and that you made use of it. So feel free, in case there's further questions or things to clarify, or if you want to have a demo, to reach out to our panelists. Well, so if there is no further questions, I would want to thank our panelists for presenting today, and also for our audience to listen to us attentively. Yeah, so right now we can give you back 10 days of your day. We wish you a successful rest of the day and hope to see you soon in the next webinar. So
Thank you. Goodbye.
have a great day and bye-bye.